Recognizing a quorum, I'm calling this meeting of the Cannabis Control Commission to order at 10:32 a.m. on July 2nd. Can everybody in the back hear me? Commissioner Doyle is participating remotely, so let me ask her to say something, make sure that everybody can hear her. Commissioner Doyle?
Good morning, everyone.
Can everybody hear Commissioner Doyle? Great, thank you. I keep asking like what has to be the dumbest question of all time, but is this meeting being recorded? Let me put the public on notice that this meeting is indeed being recorded. Can I ask everybody to put their cell phones, please, on silent or shut them off, please? Thank you. As Commissioner Doyle is participating remotely, all votes will be done by voice vote individually tallied. So let's get into the agenda. First of all, my thanks again to the Health Policy Commission for allowing us to use their room. Really appreciate it. We have a relatively short agenda, but it might take a while since there's some pretty substantive items to go through. We have one set of meetings to approve, one set of notes from previous meetings to go through. The Executive Director's report, I believe, is going to have one just additional job description for us to discuss and vote upon. We will give an update in terms of status of licenses and applications, as always. And then, as I think you're all aware, there are 3 licenses that license applications that the staff has made a recommendation on that we will discuss and vote upon. I think that is it for the scheduled agenda. Again, it's a short agenda, but it might take us a while to get through it. That being said, let's move right into the agenda. And the first order of business is meetings, minutes from previous meeting. In this case, June 4th, 2018. Has the commission had a chance to review these minutes?
Yes.
Are there any comments or questions?
No.
And can I have a motion to approve the minutes from June 14th, 2018, please?
So moved. Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Bride made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. Commissioner Doyle, your vote?
Aye.
Commissioner McBride?
Aye.
Commissioner Flanagan?
Aye.
Commissioner Title?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoffman, aye. Let the record show that the minutes from June 14th, 2018 were unanimously approved by the Commission. Thank you very much. Mr. Executive Director, start with your staffing, and I think you have, as I said, one job posting to discuss, or one job description.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. The job description before you for consideration today is for the position of enforcement counsel. This would answer.
Mr. Executive, just because it might be a little difficult, could you just project a little bit more so that Kate
Sure.
Commissioner Doyle can hear you for sure.
Happy to. Is that better?
Commissioner Doyle, can you hear the Executive Director?
I can now.
Okay, great, thanks.
So the position before you for consideration today is the position of enforcement counsel, and this position would report to our Chief of Investigations and Enforcement, Mr. Yao Jibi. It would fall within that division. It is really intended to advise and guide our investigative process, our inspection process, and really work with the investigative team and the enforcement team in developing both process as well as guiding any investigations that may have to transpire at some point to really make sure that when things do become commission consideration, that things are drafted in a consistent way, in a very, I guess, full or complete way to make sure that that process is abiding by the regulations, but also making sure that the commission has, I guess, consistent and robust information at their at your disposal. So really intended to support that ongoing activity, also preserving our Commission's general counsel and legal team to advise the Commission during that process, and therefore not advise the investigation and kind of keeping those things separate. Really trying to build this in a, I guess, in a firewalled way. So again, happy to take any questions you may have, but this is a position that we would seek your support for. And of course, it does fit within our budget, Mr. Chairman. Was not ultimately an anticipated role that we had, but does fit within our headcount expectations.
Thank you. Any questions for the Executive Director? Commissioner Doyle, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you.
And can I ask for a motion, please, to approve the job description?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Was that Commissioner McBride? Yeah. Let the record show that Commissioner McBride made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Title. Commissioner Doyle, your vote?
Aye.
Commissioner McBride?
Aye.
Commissioner Flanagan?
Aye.
Commissioner Title?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoffman, aye. Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the job description for Enforcement Counsel. Thank you. When do you expect this to be posted, Mr. Executive Director?
It would be our expectation to post it as soon as possible, and related to that, the Commission just this morning posted the position of HR Generalist with a 2-week application window, but that information is available both on Mass Careers and will be available on our website as well. So this will soon join it, hopefully.
Any other staffing updates or other updates before we get into the status of license applications?
No.
Thank you. So here are the 3 slides that we've been using pretty much every week for the last little while, starting with just the overall summary of licensing applications as of July 2nd today.
Okay, so per usual, this is the much higher level picture of our application or licensing system. There were 1,694 total applications. I should preface this by saying this is as of last week. In order to get materials prepared, there were 151 applications that are pending with at least one part of the application having been submitted, 89 withdrawn, 1,453 incomplete, and of course the Commission has issued 1 provisional license. That breaks down into the following category: the 151 does, which is 2 independent testing lab, 2 craft marijuana cooperative, 38 cultivation, 33 establishment agent, 9 micro business, 21 product manufacturer, 3 research facility, 39 retail, 1 transportation with an existing marijuana establishment license, and finally 3 third-party transportation. From a different standpoint, that's the addition of 1 independent testing lab, 3 cultivation, 2 establishment agent, and 1 retailer from the last update that we provided.
Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, so the next slide is a bit of a granular look, which is the applications that have submitted 4 packets, and thereby representing to the Commission that they are in fact complete. That is, the number for this week is 63. That breaks down into 23 cultivation, 2 micro business, 15 manufacturer, 3 research facility, 19 retail, and 1 transportation with an existing establishment license. Again, the breakdown is that's an additional cultivation and an additional retail as compared to last week. That breaks down into 41 applications with priority status for an existing R&D, 3 with economic empowerment priority status, and 19 as being general applicants. Again, the breakdown is that's 1 additional R&D priority and 1 additional general applicant. Those 63 applications represent 32 separate entities.
Questions? Commissioner Doyle, any questions?
No.
Okay.
So for the map standpoint, same as always, it's the changes I would represent are 1 additional application from Berkshire County and 1 additional application from Essex County.
Ann, any questions? I'm going to let everybody got a chance to take the photo that you wanted. Okay.
And so from a process standpoint, I think it might be helpful to give that 63 number a bit of hopefully some color as far as where we stand in our process.
Appreciate that.
Knowing that it seems as though there's 63 applications pending, but as we've discussed in pretty good detail, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. As you know, the Commission has approved 1 provisional license. There are 3 on the docket today. Those are included in that 63 number as well. From a process standpoint, the first review, of course, is for completeness. If complete, we then generate those external notices or interactions, including a municipal notice to the city or town in which the establishment intends to be located, and then also a background check is initiated, and that both of those, I guess, steps take time, and also we're relying on the interaction with that third party. From a breakdown standpoint, again, we have the 3 that are prepared for your review and consideration today. We probably have about 5 or 6 that are out from the Commission in those third-party status. And again, my intention is to provide much more specific detail on this as of next week as a data point, but again, I just wanted to try to color it in a bit. That first layer of review also includes the completeness review, and of course what we're seeing is that not everything is when submitted, is being included in applications. That's about 20 or so
So
applications.
just to clarify, you're saying that
Sure.
approximately 20 applications we've received, all four packets have been submitted, but upon our initial intake review, there's some missing pieces of information?
That's
on
correct.
four of those
That's right.
packets.
So
Thank you.
again, this is really data relative to that 63 number, which again, folks have represented that it is in fact complete. As we dig in, what we're finding is that some materials may be missing, some sections may be incomplete. If that's the case, what we'll do is we'll reach out to that applicant, we'll generate a notice to them that says additional information is necessary, and then we'll interact with them obviously to make sure that it does get complete. We will not, from a practice standpoint, generate that third-party external information or interaction until it is complete. And of course, as we get our feet under us, we'll be able to move that process along much more quickly from identifying if an application is complete. There's probably 30 or so that still require our review for completeness.
Can I just ask you a question, which I've been asked several times over the last couple of days? Is it possible to characterize what's typically missing in those 20-odd applications, or is it just kind of all over the place?
It would be all over the place. I mean, the commission does require a lot of documentation. Obviously, making the things that we do check early would be in the application of intent. Obviously, that's the certification that a host community agreement's been held, confirming that a community outreach meeting has been held, and getting some record of that. But then the commission does require in the management and operations profile a significant amount of documentation, and if anything is missing. And I should also mention too that our review does not stop once we find that something is missing. We continue through each packet to ensure that when we generate a notice that additional information is required, that it's a complete list from us as far as what is missing. So, and then obviously the burden shifts back to the applicant to demonstrate that it is in fact complete. But it's not as if we find that something's missing and we better stop looking. Instead, it's okay. Well, let's create a list that then generates a notice back to that applicant, identifying what is in fact missing. But by and large, of the 63, I think it's really fair to say that we've been through the majority of them, and we will continue to go through each of them as they come through. But that 63 number will continue to grow as applications are submitted. But our plan obviously is to maintain or keep up with that work to make sure that we are getting back to applicants, that we are staying within our review timelines, but also making sure that applications, when they do come before the commission for consideration, are substantively complete, but then also that we can confidently rely on the information that has been submitted to us. So, and I want to give Kyle Potvin, our Director of Licensing, I guess a real kudos for the work that he's done. First in developing that review process and making sure that we are consistent in our review, but then also just by getting through that work. He is a licensing department of one today. Hopefully that will change soon as well, but it is a very manual process to get through that completeness review.
I think you're underestimating Kyle when you say he has capacity of one person. He has capacity of multiple people as far as I've been able to observe.
It was not a reflection of capacity, it was a reflection of just pure full-time employee equivalent. So, but again, I just wanted to color that in a bit to let folks know, and obviously let the commission know that our review is really has been substantive to date, but also has been thorough on a number of applications, some of which were not complete. They will still be captured in that 4 packets having been submitted, but there's additional information that we're still waiting on. So we'll continue to do that. I'll also make sure that starting next week we can really color in those numbers with specific data points for the commission's
Great,
consideration.
I appreciate that, thank you. Are there any other questions for the Executive Director before we move on to the next topic? Commissioner Doro? Any questions?
All set.
Thank you. Anything else before we move into the recommendations of the staff on specific applications?
Not at this time, no.
Thank you. Let's go there. There are, as we mentioned, 3 license applications. The staff has prepared recommendations for discussion and vote by the commission. We'll do them in the order. They're on the slide, starting with Zero Naturals, Inc. And I can read my own typing. It is MXN 281310, which is a transporter with existing ME license.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The entity will sound familiar to the commission. As I've indicated last week, there were a number of applications related to Sierra Naturals. This is the next in that line. As a reminder to the commission, We review applications in the order by which they were submitted. So this was the next available. The entity is Sierra Naturals, as you indicated. The application is MXN 281310. The establishment is located at 13 Commercial Way in Milford. The license type is transportation with an existing marijuana establishment license. Again, as I indicated previously, there were several applications related to this establishment. Previously having been approved for provisional license is the cultivation license. Next up is the product manufacturer, and finally is a research license. Individuals on this application are the same as the individuals identified in the previous application for cultivation. Again, the required entities and their roles that have an investment stake are the same, which is Green Partners Investor LLC as well as Green Partners Sponsor LLC. And I guess this is from a format standpoint, the executive summary is the same as the previous one, which will also be posted to our website as soon as the meeting is completed. They do have a priority status. They were approved as an existing RMD, thereby secured priority review. They are in compliance with the Department of Public Health. This will be a co-located establishment in Milford, and they have obtained their final certificate of registration for dispensing, cultivation, and processing. They executed a host community agreement with the town of Milford on March 12th, and certification was received to that effect. They held their community outreach meeting on April 10th. It was published in the Milford Daily News at least 7 days prior, and notice was given to municipality and the abutters, and they submitted certification that those requirements were met. We received no objections to the commission. We did receive a response from the municipality being Milford on June 22nd, stating that the applicant is in compliance with all local ordinances and bylaws. From a plan of positive impact, they intend to do the following: hold a multi-participant education workshop and seminar, and to establish a preference for hiring otherwise qualified individuals from communities of disproportionate impact in proximity to Milford. As a reminder to the Commission that your previous consideration of this license or this applicant, there was a discussion of positive impact. This was submitted prior to that discussion, so it would be the same from a content standpoint. As far as background check of suitability, no issues were identified based on the individuals associated with the applicant. There were no concerns that have arisen from that background check on entities. There were no disclosures of any past civil or criminal actions, no disclosure of any occupational license issues, and no disclosure of any business interests in other jurisdictions. They have secured a certificate of good standing from both the Secretary of the Commonwealth as well as the Department of Revenue. And now, as far as the management and operations profile, their timeline to become operational identifies that they maintain a reasonable excess of inventory in their current facility to ensure that patient demand is always met. They will seek approval to commence wholesale sales and transportation of adult use cannabis to other adult use licensees upon being granted a final license. They plan to operate 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. They provided the required summaries of the various plans and policies, which include a security plan, a prevention of diversion plan, a storage of marijuana plan. Importantly, in this context, a transportation plan, their inventory procedures, quality control and testing procedures, personnel procedures, dispensing procedures, record-keeping procedures, maintenance of financial records policy, and their diversity plan. Therefore, they are fully compliant with submitting all of the required summaries. We've reviewed them, and they were determined to be substantially compliant with our regulations. And full compliance, of course, will be reviewed during our inspections and will be required before a final license would be issued. From a diversity plan standpoint, they outline their goals in promoting equity among minorities, women, veterans, and people with disabilities, and people of all gender identities and sexual orientations in their operations, business partnerships, and surrounding communities. Again, similarly to the last application, the diversity plan was 5 pages long. Because this is not a cultivation license, there's no summary of cultivation plan. Because this is not a production license, there's no summary of their products to be produced or sold. And similarly, because this is not a retail license, there's no plan to obtain marijuana or marijuana products. We reviewed this information and would therefore recommend issuing a provisional license subject to the following conditions. First, that all required individuals successfully complete a fingerprint-based check of state and national criminal history databases, and as applicable, another review of their suitability. That the applicant provide certification that remains in compliance with DPH regulations. That the applicant be subject to inspection and audit to ascertain compliance with the requirements of our regulations as applicable. The applicant be subject to inspection and audit to ascertain its facilities are compliant with all applicable state and local codes, bylaws, ordinances, and regulations. That the applicant shall cooperate with and provide information to the commissions, investigators, agents, and employees upon request. That of course they shall pay the appropriate license fee. That they shall demonstrate that they have otherwise complied with the statutory and regulatory requirements for final licensure. Again, this recommendation is based on the applicant's demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth, its suitability for licensure, and the evaluation of the thoroughness of the applicant's responses to the required criteria. We certify that a due diligence review of the application has been performed, and as of this date, they've demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth. Accordingly, we would therefore recommend a provisional licensure with the previously mentioned conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. Questions or comments from the Commission?
Commissioner Brown. Got to hold you.
As I've said previously, I think most of my questions are going to come in the final licensure phase after our inspections process is concluded. At this point, I don't have any questions. At this point, I don't have any questions. But I think that in the final licensure phase, as with, I would expect all licensees, I'm going to have questions at that point in time.
Great.
Commissioner Doyle, any questions or comments?
Nope, all set.
Commissioner Mennel?
I would just suggest that we add the same condition that we added last week with regard to the positive impact.
Can you just, Mr. Executive Director, just remind us explicitly about, I remember the conversation, but I just want to make sure we have the explicit language that we used last week.
I could pull it up, or I think from recollection it's that the applicant update their plan for positive impact to meet to the Commission's satisfaction.
And we had added that we will issue guidance on that.
Correct, as a blanket policy.
Okay. Any comments or questions about Commissioner Kyle's suggestion? Then may I have a motion, please, to approve staff's recommendation to grant a provisional license to Zero Naturals for transport of the existing ME license, subject to the modifications suggested by Commissioner Title.
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Let the record show that Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Title. Commissioner Doyle, your vote?
Aye.
Commissioner McBride?
Aye.
Commissioner Flanagan?
Aye.
Commissioner Title?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoffman? Aye. Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the provisional license for Zero Naturals, number MXN.
Sorry,
281-310.
your camera's in the way. Thank you.
281310. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. It was unanimously approved by the Commission. The next is, I'm sorry, the camera's blocking me, so it is Zero Naturals. This is the product manufacturer application, MPN 281303.
That is correct.
Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this applicant, the entity is Zero Naturals with a proposed location of 13 Commercial Way in Milford. The license type being sought here is a product manufacturer. As a reminder, having just approved from a provisional license standpoint, the transportation with the existing marijuana establishment license as well as the cultivation license. They also have a pending research facility license. Again, the individuals are the same as well as the businesses, and the investors or entities related to the license are also the same, which is Green Partners Investor LLC and Green Partners Sponsor LLC. They maintain their RMD priority status. The RMD itself is in compliance with DPH, and the business will be co-located with their their medical use of marijuana license or RMD license in Milford. They have secured their final certificate of registration for dispensing, cultivation, and processing. They executed their host community agreement on March 12th. Certification has been secured. The community outreach meeting was on April 10th. It was published in the Milford Daily News, and they are certified They certified notice to the municipality as well as the abutters and certified their compliance with having met those requirements. No objections were raised to the commission. We did receive a response from the municipality on June 19th, stating that the applicant is in compliance with all local ordinances and bylaws. The plan of positive impact, again, relates to their pending original application, which is to hold multi-participant education workshops and seminars, establish a preference for hiring otherwise qualified individuals from communities of disproportionate impact in proximity of Milford. Having previously discussed it, no concerns raised during the background check on individuals. Similarly, no concerns raised during the background check on entities. There were no disclosures of any past civil or criminal actions, no disclosures of any occupational license issues, and no disclosures of any business interests in other jurisdictions. And they've secured their certificate of good standing from the Secretary of the Commonwealth and the Department of Revenue. Their timeline to be operational is that they propose to be operational at full capacity within 4 months of the date of issuance of the license. However, they maintain a reasonable excess of inventory in their current facility to ensure that patient demand is always fulfilled, and they would intend to seek approval to transfer any excess not required to meet patient demand to the adult use market. They intend to be operational 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they've submitted the required summaries of their plans, policies, and procedures, which include a security plan, prevention and diversion plan, storage and marijuana plan, transportation plan, inventory procedures, quality control and testing procedures, personnel procedures, dispensing procedures, record-keeping procedures, maintenance of financial records policy, and diversity plan. Again, they fully complied with submitting all the required summaries, and we've determined them to be substantially compliant with our regulations. Of course, we will review their full compliance during our inspection process, which will be required before any final license is issued. Their diversity plan, as previously been discussed, includes outlining their goals in promoting equity among minorities, women, veterans, people with disabilities, and people of all gender identities and sexual orientations in their operations, business partnerships, and surrounding communities, which is still, again, 5 pages long from a plan standpoint. Because this is not the cultivation license, there's nothing applicable there. However, their products they intend to produce or sell include the 2 categories, first being concentrates, the second being infusions. The concentrates will consist of cannabis oil, vape cartridges, shatter, wax, rosin, bubble hash, and kief. Infusions will consist of caramels, honey, sugar, brownies, lozenges, tinctures, beverages, cookies, chocolates, candy chew, gummy, lotions, and salves. Their plan for obtaining products, of course, is that they have applied for a cultivation license. They have an existing medical marijuana supply. They would intend to apply for approval to transfer marijuana inventory once a final license is issued in accordance with our regulations. Commission staff therefore recommends issuing a provisional license subject to the following ongoing conditions. First, that all required individuals shall successfully complete a fingerprint-based background check of state and national criminal history databases, and as applicable, another review of their suitability. The applicant shall provide certification that they remain in compliance with DPH regulations. They shall be subject to inspection and audit to ascertain compliance with the requirements listed in our regulations. They shall be subject to inspection and audit to ascertain that their facilities are compliant with all applicable state and local codes, bylaws, ordinances, and regulations. They shall cooperate with and provide information to the Commission's investigators, agents, and employees upon request. They shall, of course, pay the appropriate license fee, and that they shall demonstrate that they've otherwise complied with statutory and regulatory requirements for final licensure. And I can fold into this as well the underlying condition that they resubmit their positive impact plan to the Commission's satisfaction as well, making that an 8th condition. This recommendation, of course, is based on the applicant's demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth, their suitability for licensure, and the evaluation of thoroughness of the applicant's responses to the required criteria. We certify that due diligence review of the application was performed. As of this date, the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and their suitability for licensure. Accordingly, the applicant is recommended for a provisional license with the previously mentioned conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. Are there questions or comments from the Commission? Commissioner McBride?
I don't have a question. I think this is really directed maybe more at our licensing and inspections staff. I would like to see when we consider final licensure. I would like to see visual representations, photographs, if not actual product that's appropriately labeled, appropriately packaged, so that we can, as a commission, identify that that is in fact the case. I think particularly out of the gates, I'm going to want to make sure that our labeling, packaging requirements are effective and doing what they're intended to do. So I would just note that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Doyle, any comments or questions?
No, thank you, I'm all set.
Commissioner Towne?
Just one comment along similar lines as Commissioner McBride. As far as the list of concentrated and infused products goes, I would just point the public to the regulations in case they're unaware that there are very strict regulations on the serving sizes and the shapes on those products.
Any other questions? Then can I ask for a motion, please, to approve the recommendation of the staff to provision of license Sierra Naturals NPN 281303, subject to the addition of the language suggested by Commissioner Tyler and agreed to by Executive Director Collins.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Title. Your vote, please, Commissioner Doyle.
Aye.
Commissioner McBride.
Aye.
Commissioner Flanagan.
Aye.
Commissioner Title.
Aye.
Commissioner Hoffman, aye. Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the provisional license of Sierra Naturals MPN 281303. Thank you very much. Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The final license for your consideration today is for an establishment identified as Cultivate Holdings, LLC. It is application MRN 281268. Their proposed address is 1764 Main Street in Leicester, and the license sought is retail. This entity has also applied for a product manufacturing and cultivation license, which remain pending with the Commission. The required individuals and their roles with the establishment are Stephen Barber, who is an owner and partner, Robert Lally is an owner and partner, Samuel Barber is a manager, and Jennifer Miller is a manager. There have been no other entities identified as being related to the applicant that have direct or indirect authority over the establishment. This applicant is an R&D priority applicant, and they are in compliance with the Department of Public Health. They propose to be co-located with their adult use business in Leicester, and they would obtain the final certificate of registration for dispensing, cultivation, and processing. A host community agreement was executed with the town of Leicester on April 30th, and certification to that effect has been provided. Their community outreach meeting was on March 29th. Notice was published in the Worcester Telegram and Gazette at least 7 days prior. Notices were also sent to the municipality as well as their abutters, and they've certified compliance with the meeting requirements. There were no objections communicated to the Commission. We did receive a response from the municipality on June 20th, stating that the applicant was in compliance with local ordinances and bylaws. Their plan to positively impact areas of disproportionate impact include the following: direct giving. They're committed to donating a minimum of 10% of net profits to local charities once profitable. They will provide sponsorship for regular, successful fundraising events for community organizations, and they are committed to creating a hiring model that intentionally employs vulnerable and disadvantaged individuals. There were no concerns raised during a background check on individuals, and no concerns raised during a background check on entities associated with the applicant. There are no disclosures of any past civil or criminal actions, and no disclosures of any occupational license issues. And no disclosures of any business interests in other jurisdictions. They have secured a certificate of good standing with the Department of Revenue as well as the Secretary of the Commonwealth. The proposed timeline to become operational is operational immediately upon being granted a final license. They're an existing RMD and state that they have all needed human and capital expenditures to begin operations, that they've already begun making those plans. In order to comply with the Commission's regulations, they've drafted amendments to their standard operating procedures, which can be implemented upon issuance of a final license. Their proposed hours of operation Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Friday, Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. They've submitted required summaries of plans, policies, and procedures. It includes a security plan, prevention and diversion plan, storage of marijuana plan, transportation plan, inventory procedures, quality control and testing procedures, personnel procedures, dispensing procedures, record-keeping procedures, maintenance of financial records policy, and a diversity plan. They're fully compliant with having submitted all required summaries. These summaries have been reviewed by us and determined to be substantially compliant with our regulations. However, of course, full compliance will be reviewed during our inspection process and will be required before a final license is issued. The diversity plan has the following goals. They seek to become a proactive leader in the Massachusetts business community by assembling a diverse team. They've designed a hiring process to mitigate staffing bias and judges the candidates solely on merit and potential. They will prioritize the hiring, training, and advancement of people from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds. They seek to be inclusive in their hiring process and to offer service opportunities to diverse groups of vendors, suppliers, and contractors. Their goal is to match or exceed the diversity of Leicester. They will implement training programs as part of their onboarding process that will educate participants about cultural differences in the workplace. Because this is a retail, there's no cultivation plan, and there's no products to be manufactured. However, because they're existing R&D with a fully developed cultivation and production components, and they've applied for their adult use cultivation and product manufacturing licenses. That is how it pertains to their plan to obtain marijuana products. They also plan to execute long-term supply contracts with cultivators and producers in the scenario where the applicant is denied adult use cultivation or production licenses, or denied or of course not issued. Therefore, the staff would recommend the following: that Cultivate Holdings LLC be granted a provisional license subject to the following ongoing conditions: that all required individuals successfully complete a fingerprint-based check of state and national criminal history databases, and as applicable, another review of their suitability; that the applicant provide certification that they remain in compliance with DPH regulations; the applicant be subject to inspection and audit to ascertain compliance with the requirements listed in our regulations; the applicant be subject to inspection and audit to ascertain that their facilities are compliant with all applicable state and local codes, bylaws, ordinances, and regulations; the applicant shall cooperate with and provide information to the Commission's investigators, agents, and employees upon request, that they pay the appropriate license fee, that the applicant demonstrate that it is otherwise complied with the statutory and regulatory requirements for final licensure. This recommendation is based on the applicant's demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth, their suitability for licensure, and the evaluation of the thoroughness of the applicant's responses to the required criteria. We certify that a due diligence review of the application has been performed, and as of this date, the applicant has demonstrated their compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and their suitability for licensure. Accordingly, the applicant is recommended for provisional license with the previously mentioned conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. Are there questions or comments from the Commission? Commissioner Doro?
No, I'm set.
Commissioner Tuttle?
Yes. Regarding the operational policies and procedures, just upon reviewing them, several of them seem to mention caregivers and patients would be directed more towards the medical program. I don't see that as any reason to hold up the provisional license, but just flagging that as we continue our inspections.
We will absolutely do that. Excuse me. They do mention that they have operational procedures for the adult use market that they can implement upon licensure. That's something we would obviously inspect or want to see upon inspection. First, that they do in fact exist, but then also that those procedures are compliant with our regulations as well. So
That seems like pretty straightforward, but are you suggesting we add that as a condition?
Oh, no, I don't think that's necessary.
I'll just flag it as something to
Appreciate that.
I think it's already encompassed.
That's what I thought.
And then I thought the diversity plan and the positive impact on community plans were sufficiently specific. I would expect to see upon renewal or earlier data as to how they achieve those goals. The direct giving under the positive impact plan mentioned commitment to donate a minimum of 10% of net profits to local charitable organizations once profitable, which is commendable and I think goes above and beyond. I would expect to see, if that continues, a demonstration of how those local charitable organizations are related to communities disproportionately impacted by prohibition, as opposed to just any charitable organization. And then finally, under the positive impact plan, under the local sponsorship plans, again, I think that is commendable and exactly in line with what we envision. I do have concerns that there may be, it may be difficult to navigate with our advertising restrictions, but I trust the licensee can navigate that.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay. So there's no need to change the recommendation or modify the recommendation of the staff on this one. So can I have a motion then, please, to accept the recommendation of the staff to approve provisional license for Cultivate Holdings LLC, MRN 281268?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Tittle. Commissioner Doyle, your vote?
Aye.
Commissioner McBride?
Aye.
Commissioner Flanagan?
Aye.
Commissioner Tittle?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoffman? Aye. Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation to issue a provisional license to Cultivate Holdings LLC, MRN 281268. Thank you. Mr. Executive Director, do you have any more business for the Commission?
I do not as it pertains to the license.
Okay, I am not aware of any additional topics for the Commission that came up after this agenda was published. So before we adjourn, let me just note that the next meeting will be Thursday, July 12th, which is a week from Thursday. And I think I've mentioned to some, if not most, if not all of you, that we're intending from now on to go to a Thursday schedule for our meetings. We still have to work, so we'll try to give you precise information with respect to time and location, but the date is locked in for Thursday, the 12th of July for our next meeting.